Howdy, howdy, folks. Once again, it's Donnie coming at you once again with yet another Linux Security Report. And this time we're looking at an article at gosecure.net about chaos, a stolen backdoor rising again. This post describes a backdoor that spawns a fully encrypted and integrity-checked reverse shell that was found in their SSH honeypot. Okay, first, what's a reverse shell? Well, a reverse shell is when an attacker is able to find some sort of a vulnerability that he can be able to log into a system and have an actual shell and just take over the system. But anyway, they named this Chaos. They named the backdoor Chaos, following the name that the attacker gave it on the system. And after much research, they found out the backdoor was originally part of the SEBD rootkit that was active around 2013. They couldn't find any documentation about the technical details, so they decided to create some. First contact and recon. On June 21st, 2017, an attacker breached one of their monitored systems by brute forcing SSH credentials. Whoa, brute forcing SSH credentials, eh? Well, we'll have more to say about that in just a bit, but let's continue. As usual, the attacker first disabled the logging history and then checked the SSH binary. And I'm not going to read the whole thing there, but the bottom line here is that the attacker was doing things that only the root user could do. So after the attacker brute forced the SSH credentials to be able to log in, he had root privileges. So obviously he logged into the root user account. I'll have more to say about that in just a moment as well. And installing Chaos. For stage 2, the attacker downloaded a file that pretended to be a file from that site there. And in fact, the file was a tar archive. The JPEG extension was to make it look more legitimate in log files or packet captures. And it shows what the file contained. So what we got here is, in effect, is that we have a supposed vulnerability. And the guy who wrote this article was making it look like, oh yeah, this is a dangerous thing here, right? Well, okay, we saw that in order to make it work, the attacker had to log in. He brute forced the logon credentials for SSH and logged into the root user account and then installed it. Okay, so you see where this is going now. This is an example of less than stellar security reporting, okay? And again, we'll have more to say about that in just a moment. And then he shows how the backdoor works. It opens a raw TCP socket, which again, opening raw TCP sockets requires root privileges. So he was already in there as root, and also he had the client listening on TCP port 8338. And if we look at port 8338, which we will do in a moment, we'll see that, if you're on a server, you shouldn't have those ports open on the firewall anyway. And then the victims. To assess the number of infections, we performed an internet-wide scan using the handshake extracted from the client, and the number of compromised systems turned out to be quite low, below the 150 mark. Well, I'll show you in a moment again why the amount of infections is so low and why it shouldn't even be that much. So even though the backdoor is a few years old today, no antivirus detects this backdoor according to VirusTotal. Well, this takes us over to another article on zdnet.com. Bogus Linux vulnerability gets publicity. It's written by Stephen J. Von Nichols, who is the token Linux guy at ZDNet. And he's more affectionately called SJV in a lot of places, so that's all I'll refer to him here. It's just SJV. But he says, no, there's not a new security hole that gives attackers complete control over Linux servers, but if you use a poor password, yes, you can still get hacked. Imagine. I'm so sick and tired of crap security news about Android and Linux. In the latest example, GoSecure claims it's discovered Chaos, a stolen backdoor rising again. Yeah, right. Let's look closer. Can't have a security bug these days without giving it a sexy name. But what is it really? Well, it requires the attacker to break into the target system by brute forcing SSH credentials. Wait, what? To get this, you need someone to log into your server? Hey, I got news for you. If you let someone log into your system because you used a wimpy password, you're already hosed. But wait, there's more. Once your system has already been spread wide open because of your security incompetence, Chaos opens the TCP port 8338. Once more, and with feeling, what the heck? The only popular uses for port 8338 are for iTunes Radio and QuickStream. And what is your server doing on a network that leaves those open? And I assume there he means leaving them open on the firewall. Yes, on a server, those ports should never be open on their firewall. Okay? And next, Chaos opens a raw TCP socket, which checks if incoming packets contain a specific incoming stream. And again, in order to open a raw TCP socket, you need to be the root user. So for this exploit to work, you not only must be fool enough to use a weak SSH password, you also had to use a weak root password. I don't know what world he's living in right there, because for SSH logins, the SSH password is the same as the user account password. So basically, if you got a weak root password, that same weak password works for logging in via SSH. And attacking via raw sockets is a technique as old as the hills, and it's something that was common back in the Windows XP days. And if you got a Windows XP virtual machine or Windows Server 2003 virtual machine and a copy of Kali Linux with Metasploit on it, you can demonstrate this for yourself. It is trivially easy to break into an older Windows system with these raw TCP sockets vulnerabilities. So, down at the bottom, getting the picture, to get a case of chaos, you have to be asking for your system to be compromised. So, overall, this is not a bad article. SJV does do a good job of debunking that other article, and he completely debunks the notion that that vulnerability, quote unquote, that those Go Secure people found really is a big problem. It's not a big problem. The main point that SJV makes in this article is that this malware infection is totally preventable. It's something that cannot happen if the server is configured securely. And something that a lot of people don't really understand is the fact that Linux, okay, if you're just a normal home user, a default installation of Linux is secure enough. At least you don't have to worry about those typical drive-by virus infections like you have to worry about with Windows. But in the business world, in the enterprise world, a default installation of Linux is actually very insecure. So you have to know how to tweak the configuration, how to configure it securely in order to keep the bad guys out. Now, the main problem I have with SJV is that even he doesn't really know how to configure a server securely, apparently. He assumes that it's okay to allow the root user to remotely log in via secure shell as long as the root account has a strong password. But no. I am saying no, a million times no. You don't want the root user to be able to log in via secure shell, especially across the internet. So here's a better solution. In the SSH configuration file, just completely disable the ability for the root user to log in via secure shell. It's not a hard thing to do. It's just you change a line from yes to no. Okay, that's all you got to do. And then restart the secure shell daemon. And then if you have users that you want to have admin capabilities, well, in the first place, you don't really want for all of your admins to have full root privileges. You want to assign them the privileges just to do whatever they need to do to perform their specific jobs. So you're going to do that by configuring the user accounts with the proper level of pseudo privileges. And then you will make users log in with their unprivileged accounts. Well, yeah, since you've disabled the ability for root users to log in, you're going to make the users log in with their unprivileged accounts and then use their pseudo privileges to perform admin tasks. And then instead of using passwords, you use a key exchange. Very, very simple thing to do. Just set up a key exchange, and on each of the clients that you want to be able to log in, just transfer the public key up to the server, and then that completely eliminates the need to have username and password go across the network to be able to log into those servers. And then you go into the SSH configuration file again and disable the ability to log in with passwords. So then when these bad guys scan your machine and they find out that they're not able to perform a login via username and password, they're just going to go away and leave you alone. So the key thing here to take away is that you really, really want to know how to configure your servers. Now, having said all that, here's a word from my sponsor, which just happens to be me and my new book, Mastering Linux Security and Hardening. All that stuff I told you about how to securely configure your secure shell to keep the bad guys out, hey, that's in there. And there's a whole lot more as well. There's coverage of different new hardening technologies. I'm covering things like OpenSCAP and Linus, and I also cover the latest and greatest firewall technologies. So it's more than IP tables in here. We've also got Firewall D and Uncomplicated Firewall and the new kid on the block, NF tables. All that's in there. And a little bit about SE Linux, a little bit about App Armor, and scenarios that you can use in your own practical life and your own admin life. And it's fun to read too, because I used humor, conversational writing style in order to make it easy to read. So yeah, definitely check it out. I mean, if you're interested in security, and you should be, then definitely check out this book. 2 ways to get it. You can either go directly to the Pact Publishing website or to Amazon. Either way, the purchase links are in the video description below, as well as the links to the original articles which I covered. So check it all out. Anyway, that's all I got for now, and we'll see you next time.